All right,
Okay.
I'd like to call, where's my hat? Come on. 20 minutes late as it is.
No. All right.
You ready? You ready? I'd like to call to order the December meeting, the joint meeting. Sam, would you please read the notice of compliance?
Sorry.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, PL 1975, notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of the regular meeting and the joint meeting on the bulletin board of the Maplewood Municipal Building, by mailing the annual notice of the regular meeting for 2014, the Star Ledger, the Home News Tribune, and to the offices of the municipal clerk of the 11 member municipalities of the joint meeting, and to the city clerk of the city of Elizabeth, and to the county clerk's office in the counties of Essex and Union, all December 30, 2013.
Thank you very much. Can we all stand for, oh, sorry, first the roll call, sorry. Who's here?
Mr. Hughes?
Here.
Ms. Saxon?
Here.
Ms. Burgess? Here. Ms. Leventhal? Here. Ms. Seymour?
Here.
Ms. Cheneyfield Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Kelly called, who couldn't come today. Mr. Levinson?
Here.
Mr. McKernan?
Here.
Ms. Bangle was here and had to leave. Mr. Florida?
Here. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It was, Gail?
Mr. Hughes.
Mr. Hughes, okay.
Okay, for the report of the officers, you have a copy of the treasurer's report. Is there any questions? If not, I'd ask for a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, report of the committees of staff and professionals, personnel and procurement.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, our first is the RFPs for professional services, which is Resolution 89. And here, well, maybe, Sam, would you explain the process?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Before you have a resolution 89, and essentially this is the RFQs and RFPs for professional services. There were four of us who sat in and reviewed the RFPs, Mr. Berkeley, Mr. Dowhan, Mr. Francis, and myself. And what we have present to you this evening is the RFQs and RFPs for these services in our counties.
Okay, so in the various types of services, anything from 1 to 7 firms have been approved by the committee.
8 is on the next page.
No, I'm sorry, within each one, like
Okay.
engineering has
Okay.
7, auditing has 1. So, they are qualified to provide the services that the joint meeting anticipates having.
Yes.
With general counsel and with public relations, that's number 2 and 5, issues have arisen. First, the general counsel, we're asking, the committee is suggesting to the board that we reopen the RFQ on this. The reason being, Genova Burns, GM Tomasi, and Webster is no longer a firm. It is now Genova Burns. Okay. There is interest from Webster, who is no longer,
I'm sorry, just prior to you saying that, we do have, what are you, general counsel now?
No, special counsel.
Special counsel. Okay, so listen very closely because there was some questions we had.
I would suggest that we wait till the end and we...
Wait.
can we just go ahead with what
And then you can add, okay?
Yeah, this is what came out.
Come out and then we want to get some commentary. we can.
Right, exactly. Everybody, it's a little, it's different than anything we've handled, so. All right, so Genova Burns is now firm. It did respond as the firm with the four names, Genova Burns, Giantomasi, and Webster. The response was in November, when it was due. It was qualified. However, one of the principals, Webster, is no longer with the firm. Well, two aren't, Giantomasi and Webster are no longer with the firm. Webster reached out to me as chair of PMP and basically asked if we would be willing to reopen the bid based on the fact that he is no longer with the firm and has very much appreciated working with us, serving as counsel for the last number of years. The recommendation from PMP is that we reopen it, asking anyone and everyone that wants to submit, including the people that already submitted, and it will be explained. It'll be open for the period of time, will be 10 days, just like it always is for professional services. It'll be resolved with this section having recommendations for four-person committee by January 15th, which is the next date we meet, which also happens to be the meeting where we choose our general counsel for the year. So we would still be in sync, the timing, everything works out. We would ask specifically in the new RFQ who will be the attorneys that will sit at the table with us, and what is their water sewer experience in terms of counsel. We feel this is important because the firm has changed. We don't even know who it is at the firm and what their experience would be in one of the firms that was qualified, because this all changed afterwards. And we would like to honor the possibility of a previous attorney working with us if he becomes qualified, his firm becomes qualified, and if we were to choose him when we do that on January 15th.
I think,
Am I clear?
yeah, listening to the comments of the committee when they were talking before, I think one of the concerns was that when the RFPs were sent out, there was a different law firm, okay? And to grant Genova, Burns, Giantomasi, and Webster, that's not the firm anymore. It's Burns and Genova, if you were going to pick them over to CODIS or wherever else we have in here. It should be, I think, correct if you're going to open it up. If the board decides to open it up again, I mean, the idea was to be making Genova Burns if they're going to put an RFP in, and if Webster wants to, with his new firm, put an RFP in, the CODIS, an RFP. And I think the only difference is they were going to ask in this RFP who were going to be the people that would sit, a couple of main people, so you know who you're getting. And opening up does not mean you're giving it to anybody, it just means that, you're clarifying. But that's up to the full board as to whether they want to do it that way or not. Yes, Mr.
One of the things that I said, and we all know this as being legislators, is you have to be very careful about reopening a process again. And I wanted to know what the liabilities would be, or the arguments of the other law firms to say on what grounds are we opening it up. So that's why I just turned to Mr. Berkeley, because I wanted to know what special counsel would advise this board to do.
Well, first.
I am in agreement with the report, and I look at it almost completely opposite. I think if we were to go with this firm as it's written here, other firms could hold us as not adhering to it because we're hiring a firm that doesn't really exist. So I see it working against us.
Well,
Sorry.
Todd, well, this is kind of new to me, and this might be a procurement question. I mean, are we able to actually pull back a bid because of a name change to a firm? I mean,
It's not really a bid,
It's not a bid.
it's an
I'm sorry,
request for
proposal or qualification?
qualifications, not even proposal, it's just qualifications. So it's not like you're saying you bid X amount of dollars and now we're saying we're gonna open up again, that's a little bit different, but just this, it's an RFQ versus an RFP or
Right, I
even a
understand.
bid, okay, it's different.
And then just to expand on the committee has indicated that in reopening, they would want to know who's going to be the principals that will be working with the board. So, and what experience they have in terms of working with wastewater facilities.
I think, again, listening to the committee talk, one of the problems is that over the years, it's been a pretty steady, you know, you had the coders for a while, you had, Frank, and then you had Genova Burns, and I think this is, well, I haven't been on here 20 years, 10 years, but I think it's one of the first times you run into something like this, where all of a sudden the names change right at the last second, and it becomes a question is, I think as the mayor, or Mayor Milburn said, if you awarded, well, the Dakotas would be okay, because the goes is the goes, but if you awarded the Genova Burns, that's what you decide, that's not really the firm anymore. So, but again, I don't know the legal, I think that's a concern, I'm not sure about anything else, but that's, again, that's the problem that the committee was running, that they were discussing in here for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? There was a lot of commentary going back and forth, I don't, yes.
And again, one of the things that I raised was that when there was being consideration for the fact that we don't know, I mean, we do know now that Genova Burns is not taking back their proposal, okay? Even though John Tomasi and Webster have left that group, so there still is the bid in for Genova Burns, and we know now that they did clarify and submit it as only Genova Burns. So now the issue becomes.
Not at the time.
Oh, at the time they didn't, all right. I thought that's what you said,
No.
your names weren't on it.
They just changed
No,
the
I
principals.
just changed who was,
The principals were.
right,
Who the
but the
principal?
actual firm name was still Genova Burns.
Okay. So then it became an issue of who was actually doing the work when it was Genova Burns, John Tomasi, and Webster. And that's why I said, well then, if you're gonna open it back up, then we need to know who the principals are going to be with any law firm that would be doing it. And in addition to that, if you're saying based on experience, then the argument could be made for Dakota's Fitzpatrick and Cole. I mean, they've been a long-time attorneys at joint meetings in the past. So how do you weigh this based on you saying you want to go for experience, and it was decided that they wanted to open up the process so that continuity could go forward with the lawsuits that are currently involved?
I think that that was a comment made,
Right.
and may favor a certain group, but the committee only came out and recommended because of the, I don't want to use the word confusion, but it
Legal
should
change.
it should be clarified, it was not a vote to recommend a new firm of Webster, it was not a vote to recommend Genova, it was not a vote to recommend Dakotas, it was just a question, should it be reopened, because there's some confusion, that make it very clear, and then the board will decide at the next meeting whether they want to, I'm going to say the 3 firms, there could be 5 firms now, but I'm going to say whether it's Dakotas or whether it's Genova Burns, or the new principals, or whether it's Webster if he files an RFP. It wasn't a vote for anybody, it was just,
Right, right.
I mean, there's always a thing about continuance, that doesn't mean you have to vote that way. I mean, there's always that's a plus, but you don't have to do that. Yes, in the back.
I have a comment. I thought it was at the discretion of the board if we chose to open it up for an additional 10 days or whatever, et cetera, that should be at the discretion of the board without explanation. So that I don't really know as far as the law is concerned, but that was an issue that had came up in my town as well. If we would be able to open up another RFP or RFQ for an additional amount of days, based on the fact that we as a board, we were just not comfortable with the people that had submitted at the time, so we figured that we would open it back up and then see what we get, and then we'll just take it from there.
Right.
And I think with the additional stipulations, the board would not really be subject to any lawsuits because
Right.
now you're asking for specific information in your RFP. RFQ.
Very important difference. Right, okay. And I think there was a lot of discussion, it's being put out, and the board has to now vote as to whether they want to reopen it or leave it the way it is, or reopen it and get some clarification and some names of who the principals will be, because things have changed. You sort of knew what you were getting if the firm stood together. Now you don't know what you're getting because you don't know the terms, and you don't know anything. You don't know. It's really up to the whole board as a whole. That's the discussion that came out, and
Are there any other questions, comments?
okay, go through the rest, and then when we go for the resolution or something, we're gonna have to make some kind of discussion with the voters on that.
How we
How we wanna vote that.
Okay, the other is number 5, Public Relations Services. It came up in the committee that there was dissatisfaction with the performance of Zingrave's appeal during the state litigation process. And Mr. Levison, since he led that committee.
We had asked them to help us support in the Spill Act legislation that we were trying to change, and it was very disappointing in the work that they performed for us during that process. In fact, we did pull back some monies from them, didn't we?
Yes.
For the work that they had performed.
Right, we cut back on what they're...
And we only have one. The thing that we're saying is that we want to take a look at the RFQ to see what the qualifications are being specified, and see if we can open it up to see if we can get additional bidders to be qualified for public relations.
They were the only
bidder.
submission.
Was
Yes.
there, did we make anything official about our dissatisfaction around that? Because I know you can do something for vendors that, a note, I just don't see, we have to have a reason not to
I
choose.
believe the council, I believe Leonardo Webster did speak to them, because he's the one, I think, who brought to them, both to them and the other
And
firm.
Impact New Jersey,
And-
with the fees,
and-
when there was the
And
reduction.
he said we're
of the fees,
reducing the
right?
fees because we're not happy with what you did. So I don't know the exact conversation, but our council did go to them and say they were not happy, the board was not happy.
Well, they were here when we had a discussion.
Yeah, there was a discussion here,
Correct.
and he reached out to the groups and more or less said, we're reducing the payment by X amount of dollars, I forget what it was. So there was a discussion here somewhere.
Other questions or comments?
So if there's no other comments, okay, so you basically said it's okay to the rest of the people. Well, the engineering, how are we handling the engineering services? There's a recommendation on that, right? Did you come out and say the recommendation?
No, that's for the next
That's
resolution.
it, yeah.
This is just
This is the one
qualifying.
above it. This is 89.
That's for another
Okay,
year.
I got you, okay.
Okay, would you explain to us how, all right, so the recommendation from the committee is for number 2 and number 5 to rebid, to resend the RFQ. John, would you explain to us how?
So the
we
best would
vote?
probably be to take 2 and 5 out of the resolution completely and leave 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 and leave those as the qualified firms, and just don't address general counsel or public relations services.
Being as the resolution is drafted, that's a substantial change. Should we make a statement that we are leaving them out to be resent?
We can add a line, we can add another now therefore line that just that says that states that, the fact that there are,
That'd be good.
yeah, that the RFQs for those two positions, general counsel and public relations services, will be extended for an additional 10-day
Yeah, we have
period.
to say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so you have the resolution, which is before you, number 89. But we're clarifying it verbally by saying that we are voting on agreeing with the recommendations from the administration that the following professionals are qualified. That's 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. We are, at this time, reopening the RFQ for number 2, which is general counsel, and number 5, which is public relations.
I move this article.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion on the floor and a second, and I think if you understood what they said is that we're eliminating 2 and 5 from this. Have a roll call on that, please.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Saxon?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Abstain.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Ms. Hannibal?
Yes.
Chittifield Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
Mr. Charney?
Yes.
Mr. Florio?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we will deal with professional authorizations. We have engineering services, which is resolution 90. Now, the resolution we just passed shows you who is qualified. Okay? From this list, we are looking to designate to award a contract for engineering services, which is the group in number 1.
An engineering services that we're recommending is CME, and the special engineering services, ABA.
These are our present firms. They've been with us for quite a few years, and the subcommittee recommends that the full board pass these resolutions.
Any questions or comments in regards to the recommendation?
Both resolutions?
It should be separate, yeah,
They should be separate.
91st.
We'll vote on them separate, but we'll have to get, do we have one motion for that?
I will see why not.
I think
I'm
we
sorry?
can,
Okay,
I think we can,
all right.
right.
I'll put it in.
Does anybody have any questions they want answered? No? Then I'll ask for a motion for approving CME for our general engineering and ABA for our special engineering service.
They really do have to be done separately.
Okay,
There's
okay.
money
All right,
associated.
right, listen to my verbal here. Have a motion on 90, please.
On 90.
And a second, roll call, please.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Saxon?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Mr. Leventhal?
Who's that? Oh, me, oh, yeah. Yes.
Ms. Hannibal?
Yes.
Ms. Chittifield Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston? Mr. Charney?
Yes.
Mr. Florio?
Yes. Okay, discussion was handled on 91. I would like a motion on 91 for approving ABA for special engineering.
Motion. Second.
That was Ms. Burgess, the second.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Saxon?
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Levinson,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Jennifer Jenkins,
Yes.
Ms. Levinson,
Yes.
Mr. Attorney,
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
And again, under professional authorizations, we have Resolution 92, awarding the contract to CME Associates for professional engineering services to increase methane production by utilizing food waste. And we're going to have that explained to us.
Thank you for the vote of Resolution 90, greatly appreciate it. This resolution is for consulting services by CME to work with your attorney to prepare an RFP to potentially receive food waste at the joint meeting. And the food waste will come in the form of a liquid organic product. It would be injected into the digester system. And because it's organic, it has the potential for breaking down and producing methane gas, which you will use to run engines to make electricity and heat to keep your costs down. It has been done in other places very successfully, and we believe it can be done here also. Any questions?
I'd like to mention that we already, I don't know the percent, but we already fuel our plants with methane.
Yes, for those that are new, we have a cogen plant, and we have 3 engines that run continuously. 2 of the engines use methane gas from the digesters, and 1 uses natural gas. And the goal is to bump the gas production so that we can run all of the engines on methane gas eventually, and save a lot of natural gas, of course, and increase your savings on an annual basis.
So is the study going to just look at the feasibility of doing this, or is it also going to look at the possible vendors for the food?
It's going to we're going to solicit for vendors
Okay, so that's
to provide the service, and in that RFP, they'll have to explain how they're going to do it and how it's going to benefit the joint meeting, and whether there's any costs and what the cost associated with receiving the material is.
Any other questions? Okay, then I'll ask for a motion.
Second.
Okay, Burgess. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Saxon? No. Ms. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Levinson,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Jennifer Jenkins,
Yes.
Ms. Levinson.
Yes.
Mr. Attorney,
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to authorization to bid. First is Resolution 93, cogeneration facility exhaust catalyst elements.
This is just something to go out and bid for equipment and services. Anybody have any questions on that? Now I'll ask for a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, next is bid report and awards. This is the excavation and repair services on an as-needed basis, Resolution 94.
Yes, we went out to bid. We received 2 responses. Montana Construction came in as the lowest responsive bidder.
They are our current provider.
Yes, they are currently our provider.
They are good. Recommendation is to.
Do we have any questions? Ask for a motion, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Saxon,
Yeah.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Levinson,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Jennifer
Yes.
Jenkins, Ms. Levinson,
Yes.
Mr. Attorney,
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to purchase order authorizations. That's 95 through 101, we will be voting individually. There is a factor that it affects every one of these 7.
Yes, it's the pay-to-play factor.
Can you please stand and explain? Thank you.
The pay-to-play threshold is 17,500. In aggregate, if you use the vendor over 17,500, it needs to do a fair and open process. We put it on the website for 10 days and it's awarded by resolution. We receive quotes. It's lesser than a bid. It's not as strict as a bid, but it satisfies the pay-to-play rules.
Okay,
Yeah, let's go through each one.
go ahead.
Okay. Comline Sanderson gave us a quote for $7,800 for repair parts for the gravity belt, which is a Comline Sanderson gravity belt.
Just like to say that the amount is $7,832.
Any questions? Any motion, please?
So
Can I just
Oh, sorry.
One
Is
second.
it possible that since Mr. Francis is on the floor, that she could just explain all of them, and then we can do voting after?
That's fine.
Okay.
Resolution 96, we had the cheflet screw that we need for joint meeting. Northeast Industrial came in as the lowest responsive quote at $17,659.59. We need gearboxes and 2 motors for our traveling bridge. We received 3 quotes for them, with Motion Industries coming in at $15,663.54. Modifications to the control system for the chemical storage facility. Morehouse Engineering came in at $19,500. We made 24 screen house screw chalk liners. We had 3 responses, the lowest industrial metal at $4,593.60. Again, 12 screen house grit chalk liners. Payment Industrial was our only respondent at $6,029.04. And service to repair our traveling bridge, cost of payment of $11,300. In all these instances, it would put us over the pay-to-play threshold, so we did the fair and open process.
Anyone have any questions on any of those purchases?
Or on the pay-to-play and the figure of the 17,500. It is an aggregate figure for each company.
So, good. We have to vote individually on this?
I think we can have a consent vote unless any member decides they want to not vote in favor of it.
Okay, what Mr. McGee is saying is if you all agree, if for some reason one of you don't want to vote for something, then we can't. But if you all feel you're in favor of this, we can do a consent vote, which means we can just group them all together and do one vote. Does anybody have any concern about any of these they will vote against? If not, then I'm recommending that we do a consent vote for resolutions 95 through 101. Can I have a motion for a consent?
Second.
Second, Mr. Hughes. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Saxon?
No.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Ms. Noel?
Yes.
Ms. James Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
Mr. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. Florio?
Yes.
And our last item under PP is the annual state purchasing contracts. We have in resolution 102, a listing of vendors that our administration deems acceptable to do business with in the course of the year. and the committee recommends passing the resolution.
Anybody have any questions? Have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Saxton?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Mr. Leventhal?
Yes.
Ms. Haymo?
Yes.
Ms. Canfield Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston? Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Florio?
Yes. All right. I believe, staff reports. Okay, we have staff reports for the treatment plant, industrial pretreatment. I just want to ask, is there any question on those two? If not, I'll ask for a motion. Acceptance.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On item 3 is the 2015 annual assessment report. Does anybody have any questions? I just wanted to keep that separate. Does anybody have any questions on that? That's the assessment that's been determined by the joint meeting staff as to what each municipality should be charged, or each percentage. Anybody have any question on that? Okay, I'd like to have a motion on that, please, then, please, to accept the annual assessment report.
Moved. Second.
Okay, I'd like a roll call on that, please. It's with resolution 87.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Saxton?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Ms. Haymo?
Yes.
Ms. Canfield Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. Livingston?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Florio?
Yes. We have a couple, we have a couple more resolutions to go through here before we go to the next report. Number 86 is the payment of bills. Do you have any questions? Motion, please.
Motion.
Mr. Kearing, second.
Second.
Okay, roll call on that, please.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Saxton?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Ms. Haymo?
Yes.
Ms. Gill?
Yes. Yes. Okay with it.
Mr. Livingston? Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Florio?
Yeah, right.
I'm losing my...
Got it? Okay. Resolution 88, you've been given a notice of the 2015 notice of the meeting dates. Anybody have any problem with that? Now I'll ask for a motion to accept the meeting dates for 2015. Mr. Levinson?
Second.
Leventhal? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, the last two here is Resolution 103 for the pay increase for non-union employees. We talked about this last meeting. Any questions? I have a motion, please, to approve Resolution 103.
Motion.
Second.
Vote, can I have a vote, please? Roll call.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Saxton?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Ms. Haymo?
Yes.
Canfield Jenkins?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Florio?
Yes. Anybody opposed? Okay, resolution 104, proposed legislation launch for increase for board members. Ask for a motion. Who is that?
Move it.
Okay, Burgess, me second.
Second.
Ms. Leventhal. Roll call, please.
Discussion?
Go ahead.
Traditionally, well, I've been here about 10 years, the board does not increase the payment that we receive. It's just the way we've done it all these years. So, if you agree with that, not getting a 2% increase, then you would vote no on this resolution.
This is a comment, and I know that's been the case. I know that the last several years that I've been here, part of that had to do with the economy and so forth, and I think most of the people didn't voice any opposition to that last meeting, about a 2% increase. But as Ms. Leventhal says, it is up for a vote. If you don't want to vote for 2% increase, the vote will be no. If you think you should get a 2% increase, this board hasn't gotten an increase in 10 years. I think it's out of line. So I'm going to ask for a roll call yes vote for increasing it 2% and no vote is no. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Ms. Saxon.
Yes.
Ms. Burgess.
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal.
No.
Ms. Haymark.
No.
Jimmy Jenkins.
Yes.
Mr. Levinson.
No.
Mr. McDermott.
No.
Mr. Florio.
Yes.
Okay, with a 5-4 vote, it's been passed.
That takes care of the resolutions. Do we have any unfinished business? I'm sorry. Okay, professional reports. Skip around.
Public comment.
Yeah, I know, that's fine. Okay, professional council report, council. Don't ever give me his name. Anything from the council?
No, I have nothing else to report besides.
Okay, there is no conflict council report. Engineering reports, you've read, is there any questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion to accept the engineering reports.
Move to accept.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Did you second it?
Yes. Opposed? Okay. There's no correspondence? Okay. Public comment? Anybody from the public? We have one person here. Comment?
Saul Pearson, 150 Berwyn Street, Roselle Park. What are the
What was
salaries?
the name again?
Saul, and I'll spell it, S-A-U-L Q-E-R. No, Quebec Echo Romeo.
Q-U-E-R?
No.
Oh, my name is Saul.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What are the salaries right now for the board members?
Do you have the exact number?
It's
6,500.
12 and 6.
It's in the sixes.
I think chairperson is 12 and members are 6, roughly.
And that's a year?
Correct. Yes.
Whether or not a meeting is attended, is that correct?
Pardon?
Whether or not a meeting is attended?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Is there any reason we need to go to closed session?
No.
Okay, any unfinished business? Okay, new business? Okay, our next meeting is January 15th. I'm not sure if all of you are coming back. I hope you are, but I'm sure who's coming back. Just one last thing before we adjourn on that one subject that we were talking about. just so you understand that we're going to reopen it. The administration, when the students come through, will come through with a recommendation. It will be discussed again at the procurement. That committee will recommend, but that is your decision then to ask any questions you want, and determine who you want to be your counsel. Okay? So, because you're going to have to vote on it that night. So it's going to be a little bit of a quick thing here, but you should just think about this, that like the administration and committee will come with a recommendation, but you really need to ask any questions you want and bring up any issues. Very important decision who you make as your counsel.
We'll also need a resolution to approve the qualified list for general counsel and public relations. A separate resolution to cover two. Okay, that,
Yes, ma'am.
Just a question, what happens if you get no more applications for the gym thing?
I don't understand.
Because you only got one in the past.
About the public relations.
Public relations, yeah, what happens if you just get the same
We'll just
application?
bring it before the board.
You can't disqualify for not probably performing.
That'd be a real stretch. There was, in terms of, there was a certain specific situation which there were dissatisfaction mentioned by one of the members. However, we worked with them on a number of issues. And from a management standpoint, we would not say they're disqualified.
Well, it was just a special,
Had to do with the accidental situation.
Could I ask also, Sam, if you could, I'm a little bit confused as to what date you're actually going to determine who's qualified. If you could, as you did in the paperwork we got before we came here, could you send us a list of who is qualified under the general counsel and who their principals are, so that people have a chance at least to know before they walk into that meeting what they're doing, or at least, not what they're doing, but at least they know who the 1, 2, 3, 4 qualified firms are.
Or it would be a resolution.
Huh?
That would be the first resolution.
Okay.
They would be listed.
If that's what we're getting,
Yes.
it's
Right,
be in
it's
there.
in the packet.
Yeah, but when you say, okay, the first resolution, it's not gonna name somebody, it's just gonna.
No,
No, but it's all qualified firms, so there could be 20 of them.
Okay.
You know, whoever
And then-
responds is
and
qualified.
I don't think you have to necessarily put it in a resolution, but as the board maybe would wanna know is who the people, person or people are gonna sit. If you could put that in a side note somewhere, it doesn't have to be in a resolution. In other words, who's gonna sit for the,
Who's the principals?
who's the principals for the 2 or 3, so people know who they're.
all the law firms involved, who are the principals that are going to be.
That doesn't have to be in a resolution, but.
Right.
Okay, any other comment before we close? All right, motion to adjourn?
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year's got me overwhelmed here today with these resolutions. Have a motion to adjourn, please.
no motion.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.